Hello everyone, I am Rika Andapit. In this video, we're going to talk about critical thinking. So, will you know later about critical thinking, the characteristic, and the use of, and also the barriers of critical thinking? That before that, let's listen the quote. So, when your mind is full of assumption, conclusion, and beliefs, it has no penetration. Just repeat past impression. By Sadhguru. Critical thinking and curiosity are the key to creativity. So, what comes in your mind when we talk about critical thinking? So, when we see critical thinking, whenever the word critical is used, it often has a negative connotation. Critical is often taken to mean the tendency to find and call attention to errors and flaws, such as when a person is critical of what we do or say. However, critical also means involving exercising skill, judgment, or observation. It is the sense that the word critical is in critical thinking is used. Thus, when we see critical thinking, we mean thinking clearly and intellectually. So, critical thinking encompasses a wide range of cognitive skills and intellectual characteristics needed to effectively identify, so analyze and assess arguments or truth of claims. To think critically means to discover and overcome personally prejudice and biases, to prepare and come up with a convincing reason in support of conclusion, and to make rational smart decisions about what to believe and what to do. In other words, critical thinking can be defined as disciplined thinking regulated by a clear intellectual standards. The most important intellectually standard identified are clarity, accuracy, relevance, consistency, logical correctness, and fairness. So, critical thinking. Critical thinking is the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, analyzing, applying, synthesizing, and or evaluating information gathered from a generated by observation, experience, reflection, reasoning. Example, a trained nurse analyzes the case of hand and decides the order by which the patient should be treated. And then, a plumber evaluates the materials that would be best suit a particular job. Or another example, the attorney reviews evidence and devises whether to settle out of the court. And then, now let's proceed the 8 characteristic of critical thinking. So, first is the clarity. And then, second is the precision. Third, the accuracy. Number 4, relevance. Number 5, consistency. Number 6, logical correctness. Number 7, completeness. And number 8 is the fairness. So, when we talk about clarity, the first step involved before assessing an argument or claim of a person is to understand clearly he or she is saying. However, many a time this can be a rather challenging because people often fail to express themselves clearly and accurately. This may be due to several reasons, which can include laziness, carelessness, or lack of assertive skill. So there are also instances whether this may be due to a misguided effort to appear smart, intelligent, or profound. Thus, by paying close attention to language, we can save ourselves from unnecessary miscommunications and disappointments. So, clarity, a statement can be clear, accurately precise, and relevant, but superficial. So, example, The state just say no, which is often used to discourage children and teens from using drugs, is clear, accurately, precise, and relevant. So, when we say no to our students, it is no. So, it is when we say clearly. And then the next is the precision. So, when we say precision, an important element of these stories is precision. Through careful observation, Homebase is able to find clues that are overlooked by others. A process or a logical reference follows by which he is able to use the available clues to solve the mystery. Precision is required in various specialized fields such as medicine, mathematics, architecture, and engineering. Critical thinkers are aware of precision is required in various specialized fields such as medicine, mathematics, architecture, and engineering. Critical thinkers are aware of importance of precise thinking in everybody's life, where in order to dissect the confusion and uncertainties that surround many everyday problems and issues. It is a must to obtain precise answers to precise questions. Precision is the exact to the necessary level of details specific. A statement can be both clear and accurately, but not precise as in, Jack is overweight. One does not know how overweight Jack is. So, 1 pound or 50 pounds. So, thinking is always more or less precise. And then the next is the accuracy. So, when we say accuracy, a well-known tagline or input-output system states, garbage in, garbage out. So, the human mind works in the same concept. A person can be considered very intelligent, but he or she makes a decision based on false information. It is very likely that the decision must be a bad one. Critical thinkers not only value truth but also have an obsession for accurately and timely information. So, accuracy is unquestionably essential to critical thinking in order to get at or closer to the truth. Critical thinkers have to access accurately and adequate information. They need the facts because the right information is invaluable in order to analyze and address an issue. So that we can say about accuracy. And the next is the relevance. So, when we talk about relevance, the moment we find ourselves in a situations where the environment and people are boring, so we begin to appreciate the importance of staying focused on relevant ideas and information. Many a debater has successfully used the technique of raising irrelevant issues to distract the attention of his or her audience and opponents. So, like for example, relevance, how is the connected to a questions? How does the bear on this issue? A statement can be clear, accurately, and precise, but not relevant to the questions at issue. Example, students often think that the amount of effort they put into a course. So, relevance, how is that connected to a questions? How does the bear on the issue? A statement can be clear, accurately, and precise, but not relevant to the questions at issue. Example, students often think that the amount of effort they put into a course should be used in raising their grade in a course. So, that is the example of relevance. So, in solving problem, we must analyze clearly our problem so that our solutions must be fit in. For us also to be free from confusion o pagkalito or ambiguity o kabuluan, and to remove obscurities, ang mga kalahuan. So, katumpakan, in analyzing solution, you must think that if this solution exact to the necessary level of details, example, You're given a problem in mathematics that you are going to find the length of those given graph, but you are using the formula of getting scope, so your solution is not level to the problem. And you cannot get the right solution. That's why we must apply precision in critical and creative thinking para tumpak jud para walay problema. So, that is our
So, I am Gladys Albius, and now let's proceed. Consistency logic tells us that if a person holds inconsistent beliefs, then at least one of those beliefs must be untrue. So, consistency means it is a property of sets of claims. When we say that a set of claims is consistent, if it's logically possible for all of them to be true at the same time. Like for example, kung mga-apply ka og trabaho, so kung nindot imo ang ginapakita nga abilidad sa ila, so dawat kanila diretson, so mo na gitawag og kanang nakauyon sila sa imo kung sa ilang imong gipakita ang abilidad sa ila, so that is the consistency. So next is logical correctness. To think logically is to reason correctly, and other words, it means to draw well-founded conclusion from the beliefs we hold. So logical correctness, it means to think critically. So we need to accurate and well-supported beliefs, and also we need to be able to reason from those beliefs to conclusions that logically follow from them. So next is completeness. Most of the time, we opt for shallow and superficial thinking rather than deep and complete thinking. So when we say completeness, it is a key of aspect of critical thinking, means that deep and thorough thinking and evaluation has been exercised. So next is fairness. The final characteristic of critical thinking is fairness, which includes being open-minded, impartial, and free of bias and preconceptions. So, when we say fairness in critical thinking, means that quality of treating people equally or in a way that is right or reasonable. So, kana bitang sa imong hunahuna nga dapat patas gyud tanan. Like for example sa inyong family, naay isa sa inyong managsuon nga naay pinalabi, so dili jud siya dapat nga inana nga nakay pinalabi, so dapat patas gyud tanan. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, good evening everyone. I am Rinji Tumarasagot, and my topic is all about example of situation where critical thinking is used. Critical thinking in the classroom. Number one, critical thinking in the classroom. When students enroll in a college, they are taken aback to find out that their professors are less interested in how they got their beliefs than they are in whether those beliefs can survive critical inspection. In college level, of course, the instructor less attention about the belief. In term man gud nga gamit ani kay belief. So kani magong mga belief needed kina siya og kanang mga use your critical thinking, no, kay of course belief raman siya, so dili kay ma-probe kay ang pagka being critical thinking need na siya mo analyze kag mga data nga facts, and kinahanglan nga ma-analysis nimo ba makuha nimo nga magkinahanglan og more on study nga kini nga situation or kini nga mga belief ma-probe gyud tinod mo na nga ang mga student, so matingan na sila nga ang gilang mga professor dili kay interested sa mga belief sa in a college situation. In critical thinking course, among the skills learned by students that can greatly increase their classroom abilities are muna mga abilities nga ma-improve sa critical thinking course sa mga estudyante. Understanding the argument and beliefs of others. Of course, using your critical thinking, ma-understand nato ang beliefs nato og sa atong mga kabang estudyante, mga classmate. Then assessing those arguments and belief of others. So ma-assess nato if ma-apply nato ang ato ang critical thinking. Then develop and defining their own will support arguments and belief. Of course, masuportaan gyud nato tong belief kung mogamit ta og critical thinking kay gamito naman nato ang ato ang critical thinking nga mag-analyze nato daan ang mga belief or situation, mag-research ta mga facts o mga supporting evidence aron ma-prove nato nga kining sakto yun ning ato ang belief. And then critical thinking in the workplace. Ikaduha, critical thinking nga ma-apply nato in the workplace. Nowadays, employers are not only looking for skillful employees with high academic qualification but also individuals with an excellent ability to think and communicate effectively in the workplace. Of course, kung nata sa workplace, so in way nga ma-apply nato atong critical thinking, so magamit ta og atong mga analysis. For example, kining ang what can I do for this company? Unsay mahimo ako sa akong company, no? If this method, kining mga method ba nga company nga ma-apply nako sa in this company, mahimo ba kining better ba ang kanang effective ani nga mo sa to pa nga musuap ba ni nga company if this method ako magamit, or another, or kinahanglan ba lain nga method aron ma-apply aron sa paglago sa ani niyang company. So magamit gyapon diha ang ato ang critical thinking. Ina ang paggamit dira sa ato ang workplace sa pag-apply.
Good day everyone, especially to our instructor, Mrs. Haya Hortilan. By the way, my name is Dr. Jan Estaperi and here's my members. Now, our video for today is all about critical thinking. What comes in your mind when we say critical thinking? Of course, we are using our mind to analyze the particular problem. Now, this is my first topic, the classification game in teaching critical thinking. Critical thinking is a crucial life skill that must be developed and applied at an early age. Learn about some games and activities that are designed to develop critical thinking while being fun at the same time. Critical thinking refers to a person's ability to actively reason, to analyze information, and apply appropriate response to produce a desired result. For example, when we are playing chess, we are using our mind to make a move. You make a move while you are using your mind. That is the critical thinking. Because critical thinking, we are one self. We are one thinking. We have all thinking. All people have critical thinking. So it depends how you're going to use it in a proper way. So let's proceed to the next topic, the barriers of critical thinking. Like for example, when you have a family problem or a relationship problem, it can affect oneself because it's lack of confidence to analyze the particular problem and do nothing. So that's the one of the barriers that can affect in critical thinking. It could be out of control or unbalanced thinking because the impact of the barrier you have, and how we are going to overcome this situation that are given to us. You have to focus the main particular problem before you proceed to the next solving problem. You should make a self-esteem to interact your critical thinking to make a move. That's all my part. Thank you. God bless all.
So, I am Rika Andapit, and now let's proceed the barriers to critical thinking. So, when we say barriers to critical thinking, is an ability to be receptive to an idea or point of view that differs from your own close-mindedness, unwarranted assumptions or lack of relevant information, fear of being wrong, poor communication skills, or apathy. So number 1 is the lack of relevant background information. So, kakulangan og informasyon niya mo diri-diretso kag storya tapos wala ka kabalo sa tanan kung unsay background or unsay tinuod. So, like for example, kanang naminaw kasi mong classmate niya na siya nga walay klase but wala pa ka nakabalo o wala pa ni announce ang maestra nga tinuod ba nga way klase. So, it means wala kay kanang tinuod nga nakuha nga kung unsa gyud ang tinuod nga istorya. So why is background important for critical thinking? So background knowledge comes from learning and living in the world of paying attention to so that's going on. Mastering this component of critical thinking requires a dedication to lifelong learning, a genuine openness to different points of view, and a certain humility in the face of all that you don't know. And then, number 2 is the poor reading skill. So, when we say poor reading skills is that poor readers tend to read words one at a time, whereas a good readers will tend to success words and phrases so that each word is being assessed in the context of the phrase it sits in. This gives the good reader extra information to work out that what each word means individually. So, that is we can call poor reading skills. And then, the next is, number 3 is the bias. So, when we say bias, means a strong inclinations of the mind or a preconceived opinion about something or someone. A bias may be favorable or unfavorable, bias in favor or against an idea. So, like for example, during hiring, is if the hiring panel favors male candidates over female candidates, even though they have similar skills and job experience. Next is the prejudice. So when we say prejudice is an assumption or an opinion about someone simply based on that person's membership to particular group. Like for example of prejudice are those based on someone's race, gender, nationality, social status, and more. So that is the example of prejudice. And then the next is superstition. So when we say superstition, generally refers to a belief or practice resulting from ignorance, fear of the unknown, trust in magic or chance, or a false conception or causation. So, like for example, sa mga tuto, sa mga katigulangan, uy, dili ka maayo moagi diri kay naiengkanto nga imong matumban, muhubag imong tiil. So, that is an example of superstition, kanang gituuhan. Or, like for example, mas gipili nila nga mutuo sa mga, kanang like, ingnon tag kwak doktor, kay mas maayo daw kuno sila motambal kaysa tinuod nga doktor. So, another example kanang mas gipili nila nga mutuo mosunod sa mga katigulangan kaysa maadto sa tinuod. Or like for example kanang mutuo kag una sa lain nga istorya kaysa katong personal gyud nga source nga makabaton kag kamatuoran. So that is kanang mutuo kag mga magics even do bisan dili tinuod. And then the next is the self-centered thinking. So, self-centered thinking limited or caring only about yourself and your own needs. So, absorb in your own interest or thoughts or each selfish, concerned chiefly or only with yourself and your advantage to the exclusions of others. Like for example, they might choose activities that they prepare regardless of whether you like them or not. Kanang gusto ka nga, like for example, gahatag og activities ang maestra and then gipapili mo sa activities. So since ganahan ka na nga activities, bisan pag dili sila ganahan na nga activities pero mas favor ka kay ganahan ka, mas kabalo ka na mohatag, so kato imong gipili. So it means self-centered thinking. Kanang imo lang kaugalingon imong gihunahuna without them nga dili sila ganahan. Nakapokus ka sa imuhang kaugalingon. So that is when we say self-centered thinking. Uy! The next is the group-centered thinking. So when we say group-centered thinking, sociocentrism is a group-centered thinking. It is the rational thinking by focusing excessively on the group. So there are two forms of sociocentrism, such as the first one is group bias. It is the tendency to see one's own group as being inherently better than others. Example, church, or another, like for example, the church. So when you say group-centered thinking, another, kanang church nga, example sa Catholic, so, and then, the Seventh Adventist. So, ang group-centered thinking in Adventist, so nakafocus silang grupo. Dili sila gusto mamina sa another group, dili sila gusto makasulod ng another group, ngay may istoryahan sila, kay nakapokus sila sa ilang own group. And another example in the school, so, when the teacher says nga, i-group ta mo, I will group you in 4 groups. So, since group mo in 4, so, each by group, mag-group 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then, the group 4 will focus in their own group. So, mag-focus sila sa own topic nila, and then, the other group also will focus on their group. So, mana din sila nga, uy, kami mo'y tama nga, mo ni amo dapat kami mo'y kanang sakto ani, sila mali to sila. Kay nga naman, wala sila naminaw sa another group. Wala nila gitagag chance. Ang another group nga, ilang may balaan kung unsa po ang ilahang side. Kung makabalo sila, kung unsay tinuod. And also, nakapokus sila sa ilang kaugalingon nga grupo. So, that is the example of group-centered thinking. And then, the next is the pressure. So when we say peer pressure, when you do something because you want to feel accepted and valued by your friends. So peer influence can be positive or negative. Copying well with your peer influence is being about getting the right balance between being yourself and fitting with your group. So going to college because all your friends are. So that is the example of peer pressure. And then, like, another example, if you're with your friends who are doing something that you typically would not do and they convince you to do what they are doing. Like, so, kanang convince kasi mong friends nga, uy, mo ni atong buhaton. Even though di ka ganahan, pero, kay na-convince. And the next is the conformism. So, when we say conformism, it involves changing one's behavior in order to fit in with a group. So, like for example, a teenager might dress in a certain style because they want to look like their peers who are members of a particular group. So, like for example in Korea, so ang mga Pilipino, gasuon-suon silang mga style nga mga dress sa Korean. Para magiging Korean style pud sila, para sila sa Korean nga, para ma-look alike pud sila sa Korean. So that is the example of conformism. And another also, kanang musuon ka sa mga style sa sinuotan sa imong classmate. Uy, bagay lagi na niya. So akong sunon kay basin de bagay pud sa ako. So kanang suon-suon ka kung unsay kanang kuan nila wala kanang invento kun unsa gi mas tsada or mas kanang fit gyud sa imuha. So since giganahan ka nga bagay nila, so imo pong gisuon kung unsay gibuhat nila. So that is the example of confirmationism.
Hello everyone. By the way, I am Winilin Itawi and I'm the next reporter. My topic is the continuation of barriers of critical thinking. Provincialism. Provincialism is the holding of old-fashioned attitudes and opinions which some people think is typical of people in areas away from the capital city of a country. Narrowness of mind, ignorance, or the like considered as resulting dim lack of exposure to cultural or intellectual activity. And the next is narrow-mindedness. Narrow-mindedness is not willing to accept opinions, beliefs, behaviors, or etc. That are unusual or different from one's own, in short, not open-minded. And next is closed-mindedness, not willing to consider ideas and opinions that are new or different to your own. Example, close-minded people are more interested in proving themselves right than in getting the best outcome, or when you say they don't ask questions, they want to show you where you're wrong without understanding when you're coming from. They get angry when you ask them to explain something. And the next is distrust in reason. Distrust in reason is the native egocentric tendency to have faith not in evidence and God reasoning, but in our values and beliefs.
Good afternoon, classmates. Good afternoon, ma'am. So, I am Muslima Unutan Adam and I am the next reporter. So, one of the strongest challenges to critical thinking is relativistic thinking. Relativism is the view that truth is a matter of opinion. So, there are two popular forms of relativism. First is subjectivism and the second one is cultural relativism. So, when we say subjectivism, it is the or it is the view that truth is a matter of individual opinion. So, while cultural relativism is the view that truth is a matter of social or cultural opinion. So, the next one is stereotyping. So, first, what is stereotyping? Stereotyping basically involves establishing a general opinion regarding traits or particular groups as a whole. So, how does stereotypes affect critical thinking? So, one of the biggest negative impacts of stereotypes is that they distort our perceptions. When we look at someone and we have stereotypes about them in our mind, then we judge them based on these thoughts. So, the next is rationalization. So first, what is rationalization? Rationalization is an attempt to logically justify immoral, deviant, or general unacceptable behavior. So, what is rationalization in critical thinking? So, rationalization in critical thinking, it is a defense mechanism or ego defense, in which apparent logical reasons and given to justify behavior that motivate by unconscious instinctual impulses. It is an attempt to find reasons for behaviors, especially one's own. Then the next is scapegoating. So, scapegoating is the blame to a given individual, group, or circumstances is undeserved. So, scapegoating is used to absolve a larger group or individual of responsibility for an unwarranted occurrence. Scapegoats are often objects of irrational hostility. Then the last one is denial. So when we say denial, it is when a person refuses to believe indisputable evidence or facts in order to maintain a favorable self-image or favored set of beliefs. Good afternoon, classmates. Good afternoon, ma'am. I am Muslima Unutan Adam and I am the next reporter. So, one of the strongest challenges to critical thinking is relativistic thinking. Relativism is the view that truth is a matter of opinion. There are two popular forms of relativism: subjectivism and cultural relativism. So, when we say subjectivism, is the view that truth is a matter of individual. So, while cultural relativism is the view that truth is a matter of social or cultural opinion.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Librian Aloni, the reporter. So, wishful thinking is as an attitude or belief that something you want to happen even though it is not likely possible. So, for example, angels do exist. It makes me feel better to think they are with me, so I'm satisfied in saying they are. So next is selective perception. Selective perception, it is the process in which people choose to attend to one or a few stimuli from the myriad array of stimuli presented to the senses of any one time. Motivational selectivity or perceptual set. So example is a teacher may have a favorite student because they are biased by in a group. Next is short-term thinking. So short-term thinking, it is a considering only what is in front of you. It is about the present or immediate future. So example is failing to push back or unreasonable demands or workloads. So multi siya. Next is selective memory. Selective memory is the tendency to remember only what one wants to remember. Example, when your friend reminds you of something you did many years ago. So, kanabitang usa lang kanang ipanaalang siya butang ipa-remember nimo nga kanang kamong duha ga kuyog. Next is overpowering emotion. So overpowering emotion, it is a strong that you can't resist it hard, cold or overpowering anger. Ang example aning overpowering emotion is kanabitang nasuko na jud kay ka nga di na jud mo kaya imong emotion kana murag makasumbag na siguro ka na no. Una siya mo na example. Next is self-deception. When you say deception is the act or intent of deceiving oneself to another or being deceived.
Overpowering emotions, an overpowering feeling as so strong that you cannot resist it. Example is overpowering anger. Diba? Di man siya ka-control. This is an overpowering emotions. Like sad, happiness, mao na siya mga overpowering emotions. Next is self-deception. Self-deception, it is an act or an instance of deceiving oneself or the state of being deceived by oneself, especially concerning one's true. Example is the jealous husband who believe 1 week evidence that his wife is having an affair. Next is face saving. Face saving, it is intended to prevent someone from feeling embarrassed or having to admit that they are wrong. Example, oh, I was going to break up with her anyway after your girlfriend dumps you. Next is fear of change. It is a phobia that causes people to avoid changing their circumstances due to being extremely afraid of the unknown. Example is when a person stays in an unfulfilling relationship, a romantic relationship, because they are terrified of being single or of the effort and risk involved in trying to find a different partner.
So, good day everyone. I am Anilin Angilay. So, we all know every day we are the people are facing with numerous decisions to make and problems to solve. The decision making and problem solving is the very core in many aspects of life. Yet, some decision making can be very difficult. So, critical thinking it is important skill to acquire by obtaining these skills. A person will be able to make an appropriate decisions. By critical thinking, which is to think deeply, it helps us better to understand and help us to avoid any kind of negative or limiting beliefs and focus on more our strength. And also, the critical thinking is about reasoning and acquiring, so as to form and update one's beliefs based on good reasons. Because the critical thinking skills are valuable in the world that emphasize the ability to navigate information, becoming a critical thinker is practically useful to us as an individual. So that's the end of our topic, which is critical thinking.